introduce her when she gets here. My name's Jesse, everybody. Thanks for coming. I want to just thank DCentral first for putting on this amazing event. I'm actually close friends with Justin, who's one of the main guys on the DCentral team, and I just can't believe how awesome this is and how much he's put together for this event. So if you're out of town, thanks for coming to Miami. I'm actually from Los Angeles, so I flew across the country for this, and I know there's people from all over the world here. We're going to have a fun chat right now. We're just going to be talking about investing in the Metaverse. The Metaverse is a bit of, there's a lot of confusion, I think, in terms of what that word means and how people use that word. And today, you know, it has a lot of meanings. And so we're going to dig into that today, and we're going to talk specifically about investing in the Metaverse, because it's this whole new world, I guess I should say. It's bigger than a world. It's an entire universe, right? So I'm going to introduce everybody real quick here. We've got Steve, we've got Miko, we've got Ryan, and I want each of you to just introduce yourselves for a moment, explain sort of where you come from and why you're interested in the Metaverse, and also maybe a little bit about your investment background.
Me? Okay.
Yeah, let's start with you. Go ahead.
So I'm Steve. I'm a general partner from Yolo Investments. We're about $500 million asset under management across fintech, crypto, gaming, as in gambling, and then games. My previous background is I'm a games entrepreneur. I build publishers, emerging markets, and a few exits, and then I went into casinos. Now I just invest. So nice to meet everybody.
Yeah, hi. My name is Miko. I'm a general partner with Gumi Cryptos Capital, or GCC. I think in aggregate, we probably represent about $500 million in asset value. You know, we're seed stage in YGG, the Yield Guild, strategic seed stage lead in OpenSea, and my partner has actually launched, I think, 2 virtual reality venture funds, 3 gaming venture funds. He took a gaming company public called Gumi in Japan, and we're working on our 2nd blockchain fund. So my partner is basically like, he's been living in the Metaverse, you know, since way back. So that's my guy there.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Ryan Wang. I'm the founding partner of Outpost Capital. So we are a early stage VC fund, established around 6 years ago, focused on pretty much 3 things: VR, AR, gaming, and blockchain. So you know, right now, interestingly, like all 3 things feel like some kind of building blocks under the Metaverse umbrella, right? And we see a lot of, you know, different intersections and different overlaps between, you know, all these sectors as well. So yeah, I think you know, this is the first panel for the day. So hopefully we can have some interesting discussion that wake everybody up.
Yeah, and agree. Thank you guys for coming so early. Appreciate that. I had to, you know, smack myself in the face to wake up this morning, but appreciate you guys for being here. So I'll just introduce myself real quick as well and give some background. My name is Jesse. I had a game company as well, so a lot of gaming folks on the panel. 10 plus years ago, that company's done over 100 million in revenue in digital assets, and that was before blockchain, before NFTs, before all these buzzwords. And so, you know, people like Miko and I were going around the world talking about NFTs, I don't know, 2-3 years ago, before anybody really knew what that was. And so, really happy to be here. And I just want to open up by, you know, I thought maybe we could take a stab at trying to define the Metaverse or describe the Metaverse. I see Miko's mic.
I'm itching.
Go.
I'm itching to go. Yeah, so like everything related to crypto blockchain, like we're just really shitty at naming things, right? So like, you know, we have really stupid names for things like stable coins, which aren't stable, decentralized exchanges. Like exchanges aren't a thing you can decentralize, so like that's a stupid name. You know, so we're good at naming things really badly. So like, Metaverse is like a shit name. If you go back into the history of it, it's basically Neil Stephenson, Snow Crash, right? That's the first instance of it. And what a Metaverse is it's a corporate, centrally controlled, dystopian, ecologically collapsed virtual escape hatch, right? So it's really this very bad, desperate place, and it's not a very happy place, right? My favorite definition of the Metaverse came from some wag that I should credit, but I don't remember who it was, on Twitter, who said that the Metaverse is valuing the digital over the physical, right? And so to me, like if you define it that way, then the metaverse ends up being about like 85% blockchain, right? And then it becomes, in terms of valuing, it becomes probably 10% gaming and 5% VR, right? So that, because all VR is doing is providing a high fidelity experience of the digital, right? So, and what's proven already is that people don't need a high fidelity experience in order to value something, right? That's already proven, right? Like look at CryptoPunks, so to me, like how much VR is in this thing? Not very much. That's my way of looking. So anyhow. And the reason why I put so much % on gaming is because if you look at free-to-play gaming is all about convincing 2% of your users that it's worth buying something that they will never actually even own, right? So I mean, those people know how to convince you to buy stuff that isn't real in the classical sense. So that's my take.
Anyone else want to chime in on thoughts on?
Yeah, first of all, I want to echo a little bit on Miko's point that value digital more than physical. That's quite deep if you think about it, right? And it's interesting that metaverse has never been a new word, right? It's only kind of like a new word to the public, but for the industry insiders, it's never been a new word. For the gaming people, it might mean virtual world. And for the VR folks, right, we might imply that, enter into the metaverse, we need like better interfaces, better like haptics, better like visual and immersive audio, and to replace all our senses in a digital format, right? And to our crypto folks, right, we might definitely need like decentralization in the metaverse that we are going to build. And to the Hollywood people, right, metaverse might mean something even more, right? It don't have to be digital somehow, right? Like if we think about the movie like Inception, when they enter into the dreams, they are actually entering into a shared reality. And that could be part of the metaverse as well, right? Also like, in the film of Matrix, right? It directly connects to your neuron systems through BCI. And that may not be digital signal, that might be analog, right? And that could be a metaverse as well. So I think at the end of the day, there could be many different definitions of metaverses. And at the end of the day, it's almost like a problem of consensus, right? What's the definition of the most people in the community think is a right definition about the metaverse? Will be the definition of metaverse.
I just wanted to bounce off of that, right? Which is that really what I'm calling this now is consensual reality, right? And so consensual reality requires an agreement, right, and a submission to a set of rules, right? So for example, like we could just jump into a game, right? We could jump into League of Legends, right? I could be like Jinx. I could be this crazy chick with like a bazooka, right? And then you could be like a guy hanging out in the jungle throwing like poison cleavers, right? So like to me, that's a reality, right? And we have agreed during this match that's what I am and that's what you are, right? So my point is even Bitcoin is a consensual reality, right? And what makes Bitcoin a good consensual reality is the consensus algorithm, right? Which is that you're treated fairly according to the rules, and it always delivers a shared, agreed upon reality, right? So that's why it's the black hole for all like financial services, right? That's why crypto is a black hole, because basically it's generating consensus and it's generating a fabric of a consensus reality, right? So, but the problem that you highlighted that I think is super important is fragmentation. And if you get to the root of what we're here to talk about, we're here to talk about basically how do you invest? And one of the things you need to do is watch out, because the metaverse is anything anyone says it is, right? And so you're gonna end up with insane fragmentation. There's a ton of deals where it's like, oh, we're gonna be the metaverse, right? Okay, there's 1,000 people that are gonna be the metaverse. Good luck with that, right? So, to me, like fragmentation, there's an infinite number of rat holes that you can go down.
Yeah, there's a few words I wanna add into it. The main one is persistence, because the whole metaverse there's an implied persistence in terms of why you're spending your time and your resources and capital into it. And then the games element that we're all visually seeing right now is really just an interactive element, because it would be like a UI UX on an iPhone per se, but the actual metaverse aspect of it can go as simple as your persona in a chat, for example. So if you go back to like, I'm dating myself here, but like IRC days or MUDs back then, those were persistent. Even when you left, people still know you as your tag name there and what you can make of it. Where it's evolving to with blockchain is the key thing is the decentralization and also the DAO aspect to moving some of those powers and decisions and resource allocations to communities and to creators rather than a centralized developer or publisher per se. That's it.
Man, this has just been incredible already. So many good thoughts. I want to, I think that one thing that I want to highlight is that we've said there's multiple definitions for metaverse, right? And I think that's really important to understand in that we're talking about how do we find consensus of what this means and what is a metaverse, and it's not black and white, and I think that's a good thing. I think we need to kind of all work on it together, and I like to think about it as physical versus digital, Ryan, what you said, and thinking about interfaces, right? This is a big thing that's changing now. We're used to like having a screen, right? A two-dimensional interface. All of a sudden, the interface is now anything, right? Anything you want. We've got augmented reality coming out. We've got IoT. We've got blockchain that can tie it all together. It's really incredible. And so when you guys look at this space and as investors, there's probably people in the crowd working on projects. What are you all seeing that's interesting you in terms of how to utilize the metaverse when you say, oh, this project or this company or this founder is onto something? What do you see are the big sort of opportunities in the metaverse? And I know there's gaming, and we can talk about gaming, but if there's anything outside of gaming, that would be interesting too.
Yeah, so one of the things that we're very painfully aware of is this hyper-fragmentation, right? So hyper-fragmentation is super kind of important, right? So in a sense, like one of the things that's a danger when you're investing in the metaverse is you're kind of investing in someone's dream and their kind of ego trip, right? But I think it's true for any VC investing, but I would say in the metaverse, it's a lot worse, right? So in a sense, like it's like welcome to my fragment of the world, right? So to me, this idea of like hyper fragmentation is kind of dangerous. And for us, like one of the things we look for is horizontalities, right? So we invested in OpenSea, right? And the way we have to reason about it is we have to think like, does the world want there to be a big one of these, right? Does the world want there to be a big cross-chain marketplace for all NFTs? It kind of does, right? Because it's super convenient for the world to go, I'm just going to go to OpenSea, right? So it's like, okay, that's good. All right, then the second thing you have to answer is it Alex and Devin? Is it those guys? Are they the ones that are going to be the winners, right? And obviously, at the time we met them, they were basically hustling to work with every single team in the world doing anything to NFT, right? So it's sort of like, today it's impossible, but back then that's what they did. And so we were convinced it would be them, right? So the other thing that's been amazing is the rise of the guilds and YGG. And the thing that the guilds understand is that the scarcity in the metaverse is the players and the users, right? That's the scarcity, and they realize that humans can you can actually form a monopoly on humans, right? So it becomes a horizontal choke point in a way that previously didn't exist, right? So in a sense, YGG is like, so the rise of guilds is like investable and it's horizontal, which is very shocking, and I think you can create venture class outcomes with fragments of things, but I would say that largely speaking, if you want to create kind of the best outcomes, we're looking for horizontalities. Like for example, we just invested in Lit Protocol, right, which is a horizontal general purpose access control layer, right, being manifested as basically like an experience airdropping
And when you
tool.
say horizontal, for the audience, you're talking about infrastructure layer that
infrastructure, right? Infrastructure. So to me, the thing we look for is we look for what we call a T-shape. A T-shape is basically infrastructure that can support any application, right? But also a killer application. Right? So sometimes someone will come up and be like, oh, I have an infrastructure for identity in the metaverse, right? Everyone's going to use my identity service. It's going to be great. But they don't have a killer application. So it's like, well, if you don't have an application, then how are you actually going to start, right? So for example, when you look at an example like this, right? If you look at Ronin, Ronin is a horizontal infrastructure that sits underneath Axie Infinity, right? Axie Infinity is a killer application. Ronin is horizontal, right? So it's a T shape, right? So we look for these T shapes because we want the financial energy of an application to drive the adoption of a horizontal platform. Because in the long run, the horizontal platforms are going to survive the shakeout. Because I can tell you this, right, which is right now, we're in the hyper low conviction investment environment. Some guy this morning was like, I raised $5 million on Twitter from family offices, right, through DMs, right? That's the current kind of meta macro environment, right? So because it's hyper low conviction, right, the thing that I think is super exciting is that there's 2.7 billion gamers. And what's going to happen is you have mobile user counts, so you have billions of users, but you actually have financial services lifetime customer value. That's what we're talking about. So there will be multi-trillion-dollar new IP franchises that will grow in this area. But 99.999% of the investments being made today will just die.
Let's go to Ryan, and then we'll go to Steve in terms of what you look for, what's exciting you right now with Metaverse projects.
Yeah, absolutely. I think, to provide a different perspective here, right? The term Metaverse may sound like a very hot term to the public and also generic investors, right? But especially, I feel like, for investors who've been focusing on gaming investments or VR, AR investment, the term Metaverse, I think, got to be a little bit careful with the term Metaverse, because to those investors and to those communities, the term Metaverse it almost sounds like a kind of cliche and overused term at this point, right? So, one way when I evaluate a startup, one thing I'm always doing is that let's search all the Metaverse in the deck. Let's remove Metaverse, right? And let's say what's remaining in the deck, right? And I think, this kind of brings the startup back to the fundamental. What problem are you solving, or what product are you delivering through whatever you are building, and why these problems are not able to be solved by the existing stuff, and what's some values that irreplaceable that's provided by your company and cannot be done by some other companies, right? So I think, although we live in this hyped market at this point, and everything is moving very fast, and it's hard sometimes, well, most of the time it's hard to kind of justify the valuation with a fundamental, but I believe that, maybe I'm still having a certain traditional VC mentality here, but I still think that for a sustainable investment, at the end of the day, we still need to figure out a way to justify the valuation back to the fundamental somehow, regardless of where they are right now, right? Even if it's just a story, even if it's just a strategy, there should be a way to justify that story or that strategy to back to the fundamental and make the right assumption, and look into the model to say, hey, based on this assumption, things make sense, and this startup is worth its evaluation.
This is boomer talk. Right? Boomer talk is like, oh, you fundamentals, you need value, you need to solve problems.
Well,
I'm joking.
Remind me, I'm going to go to Steve here, but remind me, I want to go back and talk about avatar systems and NFTs there, because talking about fundamentals and what is the problem you're solving, I think that's a topic that would be interesting to the audience, but let's
Yeah, I have 4 simple points. Number 1, I think investments in general still comes down to the team. And as an entrepreneur, I think number 1, things are not easy. They're not meant to be easy. And it's how you fight through adversity, are able to be agile, flexible, learning. That's the most important thing. So whether you're building a shoe company or a metaverse company, doesn't matter. Number 2, I think what we look for is community, because I think you need to be an evangelist, and people need to believe in you, and you need to have a conversion funnel to your community and how you drive it. Number 3 is really we look for two things. We are also investing in on and off ramps for crypto to fiat. So YOLO investments, we also have investments in banking and e-wallet, and we work with YGG, for example, those that want to offboard their SLP, Ethereum, onto Philippines peso so they can actually pay for groceries. We work with one of our investment portfolios called Good Bank out in the Philippines. We also have investment projects in Brazil, India, UK, etc. And then lastly, my last point is, I'm not that smart in the valuation aspect. What we look for is how we add value. We have one of the largest crypto casinos in the world. We sponsor, concurrently at this moment in time, like 2 English Premier League teams, the 2 biggest teams in Latin America for soccer, and we do probably anywhere from 4 to 5 billion a year in terms of crypto turnover. So we add liquidity to the projects we support. And the other thing, as I mentioned in the beginning, I did build the largest online game publishers in Southeast Asia in early 2000s, before the iPhone, before Facebook. I built the largest in the Arabic Middle East, and I had a NASDAQ exit in China. So we'll provide value to the right game companies that we decide to work with.
Beautiful. And so I'm hearing fundamentals, team, solve a problem, and it's funny because like any one of us who's been in VC for long enough, like it's the same every time. It doesn't matter what word comes out, Metaverse, blockchain, Bitcoin. It doesn't matter what the hype is. It's always the same thing. But when you get into the specifics of it, I think that's where it gets interesting, because the Metaverse is I think spawning some new types of investment strategies, right? And so I don't know how much time we have left. If anyone wants to give me a wrap up, I know we started late, but I wanted to hit this topic for sure, which is the avatar systems that are coming out, which has been so popular. I don't know how many of you own a crypto kitty. I still have a couple crypto kitties, but now we're in this second wave here, and it's really hyped up. You've got cyberpunks and Bored Apes and doodles and et cetera, et cetera. And I want to go back to what you said, Ryan, about solving a problem. And there's so much hype. There's all this talk about JPEGs and what are these NFTs, and oh my God, this company just raised $5 million on Twitter. It's really crazy, and people want to know why. Why is all this money flowing? Why are smart people like you investing in this stuff, putting money at it? And I think Bored Apes is, $1 billion in total sales value now or something. So I'm quite interested in these avatar projects, and I see the value, but I'd love for you guys to maybe give your perspective on why certain of these projects are good, and maybe why some of them suck, because there's a lot of them that suck, and try to shed light on that for these people in the audience who are wondering, how do I do this, or is my avatar project going to work?
I think they're building a fundamental model for investment in the stack of the metaverse, right? What you have to do is you have to start in the center, and it's actually a circular diagram, right? So the center is the user, right? So it's you. So you're the center of the metaverse. Every single person is the center of the metaverse, right? What's around that person is actually their avatars, right? So their avatars basically are their chosen vehicles for self-representation, right? So in essence, like, identity is the beating heart, and the identity is basically your private key, right? So that's the beating heart, is you and your private key, right? Around that is your representation, which is your avatars, right? And then around that is experience environments, which are going to be, and obviously when you think about underlying blockchain substrate, that sits under everything, that's also fragmented, by the way, right? So blockchain is fragmented, experience environments are fragmented, right? Avatars, as long as they're kind of NFT represented, are non-fragmented, right? Because any experience environment can choose to pick up any representation, right? As long as they agree. So as long as there's consensus, as long as the game supports CryptoPunks, you can show up as a CryptoPunk, right? As long as you own the asset, right? So to me, I feel like the PFP projects that have juice are the ones that actually really create history and create culture and are part of a tribal identity, right? So the NFT is kind of the new tattoo, right? So if you think that if your private key is your physical body in the digital, then your tattoos are your NFTs, right?
Yeah, and you're talking about self-expression, right, which gets into community, which we also said is super important. And I think drawing a parallel with gaming is a good way to do this, because in games it's been around forever, right? You have your avatar, you build up your stuff, you get all your equipment, your loot, you collect things, you build the value. The interesting thing about the metaverse is that it allows us to take those gaming aspects and bring them into the real world, right? And so now all of a sudden we have not just this gaming universe, but we have the gaming universe infiltrating the actual reality that we live in, called the universe, and now we've got the metaverse, right? And so it's really cool because we start to blend these things, but at the end of the day, what Miko's saying is it comes down to expression, and people are willing to pay to express themselves, and they're willing to pay a lot. Think about the clothes you're wearing, the products you buy, everything is a mode of expression for you. And so NFTs actually allow us to take that, to capture it, to show ownership of those things, and then to derive value from those things. So yeah, I don't know if someone else wants to chime in. I see everyone bringing their mics up.
Yeah, absolutely. So, if we think about what exactly does this avatar deliver, right? Like Miko mentioned, it delivers a layer of identity, right? So that's one type of value that these avatars deliver. And Jess, you also mentioned that it delivers personality, right? And I think both identity and personality are something that's very essential in the metaverse ecosystem, right? And especially personality. Just think about it, right? In the metaverse, like everything is artificial, right? Houses, spaces, planets, or anything like that. Those are all artificial stuff. And avatar is one of the few things that make us feel like, oh, I'm interacting with human here, like the real human, right? We are not talking about like NPCs. We are talking about real humans, right? And that's one of the one of the key rare things that in the metaverse space we feel like, oh, we are not 100% living a virtual world. In this virtual world, there is something real, right? Because there's a real human behind this avatar.
Is it artificial or is it not?
But can I draw a line under under this, right? Which is that what's happening is that we're really actually seeing a peak of desperation and fear and anger. And I know this is a really weird vibe around this topic, but what I'm really seeing is we've reached a period of time that I call peak extraction. Right, which is that the economic system we have is extractive, and it basically commoditizes humans, right? So because the system commoditizes humans, the desire to be seen and to express oneself as individual becomes kind of like, it's a statement of sovereignty, right? So it's become like this human need to basically say, I exist, I am actually this, and that the injection of authenticity and cryptographic proof of existence is kind of a fundamental human right, and it's a desire, So to me, like the idea that we've all been turned into kind of consumers, and that this entire system is designed around sucking out our value, like we've reached the end of that. And I think Facebook Meta is kind of like the peak expression of that, and I think that's why it's gonna fail.
I wasn't going to bring it up, but
that's a prediction there, huh?
So we've been here for about 30 minutes, and I want to give everybody a chance to kind of close out with some final thoughts. And feel free to say anything you want, but I would love to hear a little bit about what you think the future holds for this. I know we're kind of early days. It's a big hype cycle, but I think we all in this room agree that this stuff is here to stay. And it's going to get even more exciting and more crazy. So yeah, last words. Steve, I'll start with you.
Sure. I have like 2 examples and then 2 points. One, I think a lot of the metaverse and also the examples you mentioned in the avatars and GIFs and such earlier, a lot of it is kind of about ego and about aspiration. And a lot of the successes are driven by, opinion leaders like yourself, like Warren Buffett getting in Bored Apes, etc. And then the second point is the conversion of it to real life opportunities and experience. The exclusivity aspect, that taking it out of the computer screen and able to attend an exclusive event because of your association within that tribe, within that community. And then the 2 examples I was going to give is one of our investments, SimWin Sports. They are allowing regular players to play with the likes of Jerry Rice, Tracy McGrady, in a televised environment and participate in that ecosystem flow. And another one would be Oshaverse, which is allowing kind of a protect to earn model where people are buying NFT assets and then they're being glorified for their environmental saving contributions. And I think that will be something beautiful for the metaverse and the NFT world to progress into. Thank you.
So,
5 minutes.
Yeah. So I'll go real quick. This is kind of crazy stuff. So I want to go far out now, right? Which is, I identify as a Buddhist, and in Buddhism there are 3 fundamental desires. The 3 fundamental desires are, first of all, is the desire for sensory enjoyment, for sense pleasure. Right? So in a sense, what's happening in NFT is that there's a quest for this kind of sensory enjoyment, right? If you go to like OpenSea, there's just a lot of stimulation and people are like lusting after these like objects so that they can own and control them, right? But the other 2 fundamental desires of human nature are the desire to exist. Right, so the desire to exist is absolutely related to this kind of avatar self-customization, right? So we're really feeding these fundamental human needs. But the mind blower is that the 3rd fundamental human desire, by the way, all of these desires lead to suffering. The third fundamental desire is actually to not exist, right? And what's happening with pseudonymity is the movement and migration of people from this uncomfortable physical reality into a chosen digital reality in which there's no entropy, in which there's no limitation of energy, in which there's no limitation of any kind, right, is actually a desire to sort of transcend and to sort of non-exist, right? So in a sense, these kind of foundational, so the metaverse is meeting these desires, right? So in a sense, it is a place of desire, right? And it's in that sense, it's potentially escapist, right? So I think, but it's solving a problem. It's solving the problem of existence. So because of that, I think it's here to stay.
Wow, the 3rd desire is the desire to not exist. Miko, your comment lift the bar so high. I don't know how to close this. Okay, so I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna ask every one of you in this room, when you are starting your metaverse startup or your metaverse ventures or your metaverse anything, let's try to do one thing. Let's try to stop using name the startup or the project meta something or something verse. Can we do that?
I like it. So it was a pleasure to be up here on stage with you guys. Just such an exciting time, and hopefully for everyone in the audience, it shed a little bit of light, gave you guys some ideas. And so yeah, just thanks for being at the conference. Get out there, hang out in the metaverse, and we'll see you in the metaverse. Enjoy.